I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. Get ready for the adventure. Get ready to journey down the road less traveled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 20 of The Road Less Traveled. I am your host, Dennis Carroll, and here is the other host, Mr. Gerald Fountain. Good evening,
Hi,
sir.
everybody.
We want to welcome everyone in tonight, and we'll appreciate you being here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the search for Noah's Ark. So get your umbrellas out, and just in case we need another ark while we're doing this here. Definitely a very interesting subject. You know me, I've always loved the archaeological type stuff, and this is right up that alleyway, definitely. Absolutely. Want to say hello to everyone tonight in the chat room. It's slowly filling up here. Got Urso and somebody named Midwest Night Watchers. I think that sounds familiar. And somebody else named Shiro. Somebody named Shiro. I don't know who that might be. And then we got Ida and Beyond the Box. Hello, Brenda. And let's see who else we got coming in here. Come on now, start breathing, people. We'll know you're in there. There we go. There's Wizard Moon. Hello, Wizard Moon. And I think let's see who else we got coming in here. We got Catherine Pierce. Hello, Catherine. Okay, Demaria. Yes. Philip Cleveland. Hello, Philip. Good to have you here, Bo. And Roger. Yeah, we got Roger in here. So we're getting a full house in here.
That's right. They're piling in now.
What have you been up to, my friend?
Oh, what haven't I been up to? Getting stuff done outside while it's nice out before the fall rain and bad weather gets here, and been doing some shows and
yeah, you're getting everything ready, huh?
Yep.
That's like the grasshopper, you know, and the ant. Remember that? I think it was the grasshopper and the ant. The grasshopper played around and winter overtook him, but the ant was smart, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you're getting ready to lose your hour of daylight and gain an hour of sleep.
Oh, I don't know about the extra hour of sleep, but the only bad thing is it starts getting dark about 5 o'clock here.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going into the dark season now, of course, with Halloween and all that. You're beginning the dark Celtic part of the year, the dying part of the year. The darkness. We have, I think, a day coming up very soon where it's going to be the longest night of the year.
Right.
The darkest night of the year. And which is the winter solstice. The first day of winter, actually. And that's coming up too. I always like to lose. Don't like to lose the daylight. I'm a kind of a day person. I like to get be out and be doing stuff. And the long nights can be kind of depressing. The longer the night is, but hey, that's okay. We got movies to watch. Okay,
right.
There we go. I've been watching a lot of movies here lately. Of course, I'm getting in the Halloween mood, and Halloween will be here Thursday. So anyway, I've been getting in the Halloween mood and watching some stuff. I watched a series, by the way, Gerald. I'm gonna tell you about it. You might want to check it out. I think it's on Tubi. I like Tubi. Everything it's free. If it's free, it's good. Okay. Well, not
That's
usually always, but most of the time. It's good. Anyway, this series is called Moonlight, and it's about a private eye who's a vampire.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it's very interesting. You ought to watch it. And he's got a human girlfriend, and there's a lot of interesting storylines there. But it is a very well put together show. Very good. I enjoyed watching it. And it's got, it's action, and then it's got, him. It's fun to watch him because he's got to kind of cope with being a vampire. He doesn't sleep in a coffin. Guess what? He sleeps in a freezer. Yeah. So he's a very modern day vampire. He's got it down pat. Though it's really good. So check it out if you get a chance. You'll like it. It's called Moonlight.
Oh,
and it's really good. I enjoyed it. But I've been watching some of the old standbys. I'm watching till just today. I watched again the original Salem's Lot. That's the best one, by the way. It's the only one I think about when I think about it. They tried to remake it, but they try to make money on everything. But anyway,
right.
The original is the best with David Soul. He was really good in that movie. And James Mason was in it too. He was good too. Anyway, that was a great one. I watched the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
Wow.
I watched that. So I've been keeping myself busy, getting in a Halloween mood here. Absolutely. So what have you got any shows coming up this week that you want to talk about before we get into our subject tonight?
Yeah, actually, the last couple weeks, our shows have been really, really good. We've had a couple authors. We had Linda Eastburn, and her book, Threshold to Encounters, about Bigfoot and UFOs and all that. And before that was Dana Lees and her involvement in her dad actually worked on a supercomputer for the government, and maybe even ties to Area 51 and Men in Black. So that was a really good interview. And before that was even Jessica Jones. She was on our show, and we talked about Bigfoot and Dogman and her investigations down by the Meadow and some other areas as she goes to investigate. But this week we have Barb Hartman. If anybody knows who she is, she's a big footer, and so that'll be a really good one this coming Sunday.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a very interesting lineup there that you had, and I think you've got Dacre Stoker coming up pretty soon too, have you?
Yes, in November, coming up right away in November, we'll have Dacre back, and you had him on your show, and I was there for that, and I went ahead and got him for our channel, and then he's going to be back on your channel again.
Yeah, he'll be back in time to get on your channel there, but he's in Romania right now with these Stoker wines, and I think he's doing Stoker on Stoker in Romania, doing some tours. I'd love to go on one of his tours in Romania. That would be very interesting. Absolutely. Actually go to the actual Dracula castle, maybe, and check that out. They would have a problem with me though, Joe. I wouldn't want to leave. Okay. Maybe when they get ready to leave, where's Dennis at?
Maybe it's a bed and breakfast.
He's hiding in the closet over there somewhere. He doesn't want to leave. Okay, but anyway, that would be me definitely. If you ever get me over there, I'm not leaving. Okay, I want to stay a while. I've always wanted to actually investigate Castle Dracula. That would be a fantastic paranormal investigation. Speaking of that, there is in the house, Miss Jessica Jones has just entered our chat room. Hello, dear. And was telling everyone about that fantastic show you and I did today. If any of you missed it, please go check it out on the Cryptid Huntress. And that's also on my playlist. Okay, either one. Go check it out. It was a fantastic show on vampires. Okay. One of my favorite subjects, as I mentioned to Gerald not long ago. Definitely. I need to write a book about those guys. Absolutely. But anyway, go check it out. And I've got Miss Jones coming up on my show Wednesday night. the eve of Halloween. She and I will be doing sort of like a Halloween show. And so check us out next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. on Hunting the Shadows. And then I've got Paranormal Point of View Friday night after Halloween. That'll be the Halloween Fallout. Well, you are quite welcome, Cryptid Hunters. Anytime, you know how much I enjoy being on your shows. We always have a fun time. And absolutely. I like the way you think, Jessica, because you think like I think. Okay. You are a female version of me. Okay, let's put it that way. That's my compliment to you. Okay. Anyway, that might not be a compliment. You might not consider that a compliment. But anyway, I like the way you do stuff. But
yeah, it's
hello,
always fun.
me. Hello, Ida. Welcome in. Hello, Emma. But anyway, check us out. We're gonna be doing that. It'll be the Fallout from Halloween Friday night. Okay, we'll see how that goes. But tonight, the search for Noah's Ark. And, you know, of course, we've all heard the story of Noah and the Ark. You know, that's a very, and you know, it's in a lot of different cultures worldwide. There are reports of many cultures and folklore of a large flood that took place one day. And many years ago, somewhere in the neighborhood of what, Gerald, about 8,000 years ago, supposedly. There's a great flood that happened, or 6,000 years ago.
6,000 probably, yeah.
Somewhere in that time, in that biblical timeline. Of course, the Epic of Gilgamesh talks about that as well, the flood, the great flood of the earth. It's very interesting, but there is supposedly a lot of geological clues and stuff to this flood happening. So it's not just folklore. It's not just a story. It is a known fact that this did take place. But the story of Noah is very unique in the fact that if you look at it this way, it was a story of the survival of the human race. And it was intervention by God to save the human race from annihilation. It's a fascinating story, just the story of Noah's Ark itself. But we're not talking too much about the story tonight. We're going to talk more about the aftermath of what happened after where the ark went down and all that. What do you know about that, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I know about it personally is growing up in the church, and learning the Noah verses and stuff and the story of it. But it is strange how you brought it up that Gilgamesh, has the same kind of rendition or story about it, and so does a lot of other ancient civilizations. Have two people in their family, on an ark, taken in the flood, and they're saved, and everybody else perishes.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And of course, there was it was a bid to save the wildlife of the earth, the very creation of things and all that. There's a lot of jokes about that, like, somebody said, no, we had a couple of unicorns. What happened to them, they were doing the tally on that. And of course, my favorite one is fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp going up to the ark,
I like the one with the two dinosaurs sitting there looking at each other, say, "Oh man, was that today?" And I see the ark sailing away.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about that is if you, at that point in time, a lot of weird stuff was going on planet Earth. If you look at it, if you look at the biblical part of it, you had the Nephilim and you had all this other stuff. And I think the Nephilim is the number one reason why God had to destroy the world with the flood, because everything was screwed up, and that includes DNA. I think everything was screwed up royally, okay? And he had to do something. He had to do a quick reset here to get things straightened back out again. But I think, without a doubt, the Nephilim are still with us in that respect, in DNA wise, put it that way. There may be still a remnant of them left. Who, for all we know, they could have went underground and survived. That's another thing. But that is interesting what the world situation was at that time. That brought
Right.
about this flood, because it very plainly says God looked down and saw that the hearts of men was continually evil. Everything was really screwed up so badly that he regretted that he even made man. He regretted it. Okay, that's bad when you think about it. So there you go. This was God saying, I'm going to reset everything because it is really screwed up. And I think that's what happens when the Nephilim, or the guys who are behind the Nephilim, the fallen, put their plan and get their plan starts working the way they want it to. That's what's going to happen. And here's a very interesting thing and I won't get into that tonight, but what Jesus said about the end of the times, it will be like it was in the days of Noah.
Right.
So shall it be in the coming of the days of the Son of Man. Noah, those times were very, very bad. We can see that. And they were, of course, laughing at Noah for building this ark. They were cursing him. They were trying to impede him. And one reason why they were laughing at him is, according to biblical thing, it had never rained on planet Earth. It had never rained. They didn't know what rain was. Okay. It said, the Bible specifically says, every morning a very heavy dew fell on the ground, and that's what watered everything. But no rain. There was no rainfall. And here's the interesting thing. If you want to look at these pre-flood things, they say that there was probably in the upper atmosphere a canopy of water that had formed around the earth itself. And it is often talked about the earth being like a woman with child, okay? And when you were in your mother, you were in what? A canopy of what? Fluid. And when you get ready to be born, what happens to that canopy of fluid?
Drains out.
It bursts. Yep. That's when a woman, loses her water and she begins to go into the birthing process. The same thing happened with Earth. That canopy broke, and when it did, the deluge hit the earth. We're talking tons of rain. We're talking probably like rainfall at 4 or 5 inches a minute, probably.
Well, not only did it rain down, but the aquifers in the earth opened up and came spouting out through the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it opened up the deeps, it said. It opened up the deeps and the water came out that way. So you had a complete inundation of the earth. This wasn't just a little local flood somewhere. This is supposedly the whole planet. Okay. Or it might have been the whole earth in that section. We don't really know. But anyway, the whole thing is, it was catastrophic, no matter which way you look at it. Very catastrophic. So you had to have some way to survive. This is a brilliant way to do it. God gave him the directions, told him what wood to use and how to pitch it and everything. He gave him explicit directions because this was a God project. Okay, it wasn't man's project. This was a God project. God was telling Noah what to do, him and his sons to build his thing. That's very interesting when you think about it. So if something God had a hand in making probably would survive all of these years later because it was so well made. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
That is one reason why they are still searching for Noah's Ark, because it would have been made so well that it would have survived even not just the water, but even time itself to a certain extent. That's an interesting thing to think about.
I mean, you're talking about a person who had a personal relationship with God, who is who is literally talking to him, and God was giving him messages about the
Oh yeah,
oncoming doom of mankind and everything on earth, including the animals. And he
Noah had a
instructed them to build the ark, and they can't even figure out now what gopher wood is. They can't agree on what gopher wood or where it was even from.
Yeah, we don't know to this day what that was. We do know the dimensions, very close to the dimensions of what he was told to make. And it is not just a little boat, folks. It was huge, and it had decks on it. Not just one, I think 3 or 4 decks that it had. And then it supposedly had an opening across the top, like an air vent, so that things below the deck could get air.
Right. They have
Mhm.
they have a full version of it, realistic version of it in Kentucky. They actually made the ark to the dimensions in the Bible, and it's actually a place you and your family can go and go inside and check it out and be in it.
Yeah, yeah. Catherine says Noah had to wait 6 months for grapes to harvest instead of 2 weeks. Yeah, when he got drunk off of that, he made wine and got drunk off of that, and that's where he kind of violated the precepts of God and had a falling out with God on because of that, and because one of his sons saw his nakedness and all that. So what was happening there was that Noah had sort of a moral breakdown. He sort of just lost it big time, and there were a lot of repercussions because of that. Some Brown Door says some say Noah's Ark is on Mount Ararat. That is where they say it supposedly came down. We're going to be talking about that in a minute, Brown Door. Actually, Mount Ararat has been known from time immemorial. We didn't lose it
Right.
and just happened to find it. We've known it for ages where Mount Ararat is, and supposedly that is where the ship came down, but it doesn't say specifically what part of Mount Ararat it came down on.
Right.
But it wasn't. But we're going to examine several sites on that in a moment. But um,
And the government won't let you climb up there and explore Mount Ararat.
yeah, that's the Turkish government will not let you go on that. And they're being that way because they do not like Christian people. By the way, they're very anti-Christian because they are a Muslim country, or they're not a 100% Muslim country, but the Muslims are in power in that country. Put it that way.
Right.
Uh, and so they are kind of anti-Christian. So if you go over there and they know you're a Christian or you're coming from that direction, put it that way, they will impede you from doing the things you want to do. And here's another thing: Mount Ararat also sits on the border of Russia, and that makes it very hard to get into on the other Russian side of it in that respect. So you got a bad area, definitely. And here's another thing about Mount Ararat: most of the year it is covered in ice and snow. It is very well covered, and that is why I'm going to show you this picture here. It came out today. Let me pull this up for you. Came out today in an article. This is supposedly, and if I can get it up here, it's not a real good picture of it, but maybe you can make it out. This is the screen capture I had to do on it. It wouldn't let me save the picture, basically, but that is what they have found on Google Earth, sticking out of the ice on Mount Ararat. And if you look at this closely, it does look like on the left-hand side down there, like the bow of a ship. And it looks like this could possibly be a ship that has broken into two pieces. And they say that was what it's in. Well, there have been reports of that over the years. There's one man supposedly that his uncle or somebody took him up there, and he said he actually walked on the decks of the ark and that it had broken into two parts. and the part he walked on was you could walk on. The other part was buried in the ice or something like that. But you
Right.
said you could see the decks up underneath where the animals were kept and all this. And he said he actually, and even I think brought wood back from it.
Yep.
Yeah. And he said that the part he walked on was the bow, and that's interesting because in this picture, that's what is coming out of the ice. And the archaeologists have seen are very interested in this picture, and they say they want to get somebody up there before it gets covered again. And they say that according to what they've seen with other pictures, that this thing is deteriorating. So you don't want to play around several years, don't you? Want to do it now, and you want to go as quickly as possible to this to check it out. I hope they do. That would be a very interesting archaeological trip. Definitely, I would like to see what this thing is, because here's the interesting point, folks. This mountain is bare rock. Okay, it doesn't have any trees or anything on it. Mount Ararat is a mountain of granite. Like, what is this wood doing up there? That's an
Right.
interesting point.
Yeah. I mean, why? I mean, obviously, an ark is a floating vessel, so that explains one aspect of it. But other than that, why would there be wood up on a frozen
If there's any
mountaintop?
wood, you're on that, and somebody took it up there, or somebody put it there. It didn't grow there. Okay, they say that it may have been eons ago. There may have been forest on there, but that was so long ago there wouldn't be any remnant of it left. If there's any wood there, it is man-made wood usually, something put there. There may have been in the past some churches built there or something. That's a possibility. That could be what. But this is very interesting. If you look at it, it's long. It looks like it's broken into. It's very interesting, and that to me it
Right.
piques my curiosity on that. Definitely, because
Well,
it
the
looks like an
expeditions
art.
that went up there and recovered wood samples from it also said that the dimensions matched what it says in the Bible as far as the cubits. So it's not like they found a tree or something like that. It's actually something that was made into a boat or a plank and matched the description in the Bible.
Yep. Yeah, it's very interesting, And of course, there would be other artifacts as well, not just wood, that you could possibly find that would be worth trying to bring back. Definitely. If it was something of that size, there would be probably bowls on there, or something with which you would feed animals with. Things like that nature would still be intact inside the ark.
Right.
That would be interesting too. It would be very subtle archaeological ground to play on, definitely, because you might come away with some very interesting artifacts. Now, the second side I'm going to show you is another one that interests me greatly in some ways because of just the shape of this thing. But it is fascinating, and it has to do with a fellow we're going to talk about named Ron White. It could be Noah's Ark, Almighty God. They're visiting so many sites and artifacts right now around the world. I think, Patricia, just my own personal feelings, Gerald may think the same thing, that there will come a time when these things, I think some of these things are waiting for the time to be discovered for a reason. Okay, let's put it that way. Don't you think so, Gerald?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there is going to be a time, just like you said, that's going to be appointed for us to know certain things. And I think some things have already been revealed. And maybe some people aren't paying attention or recognizing the signs that we're getting now.
Mm-hmm. That's true. The Bible spoke of that years and years ago. There's a time for everything under the sun, a season for everything. So there's a time for things, I think, to be revealed. The Bible does give us a promise when it comes to, and I talk to people about this a lot on different shows, but it is a promise I find very interesting that we have been given by our Creator, that everything one day that is secret will be revealed. It will be revealed. That's a promise that you can take to the bank. That's gonna happen. That includes the secrets of governments, whatever the situation. That's everything. I look forward to that day because most of the time, my friends, secrets are not held for good reasons. You know, most of the time, that's just the way that goes. But now here's the second side I talked about. This is look at that strange rock formation. This is on Mount Ararat now. Okay. That looks like an ark had laid there, or the remnants of that ark. Take a look at that. What do you think about that, Gerald?
Yeah, that definitely looks like it has a shape of a ship or an ark, as you will.
That's my takeaway on this. And according to Ron Wyatt, he has found artifacts there, petrified wood, iron bands that supposedly held parts of this ark together and all this other stuff. Or it wouldn't have been iron; it would probably be bronze or something like that. But he found the metal from this, the rivets or stuff like that, or whatever it was that he found. He came away with metal stuff, and he came away with wooden things. And supposedly, folks, he also, not very far from this, found the grave of Noah's wife, supposedly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Noah, and when you think about this a moment, okay, Noah would not have went very far from after the ark. He probably would have settled very close to where it came down at finally, because he turned all the animals loose there and all that. So he would have settled. It doesn't make sense he would have went 300 miles away and settled. It makes more sense that he would have settled close by there. And according to the story of the peoples that live around that Noah's house was there nearby. Supposedly, Ron Wyatt found remnants of that as well. Ron Wyatt was a very interesting guy. And I was telling Gerald this before the show. He found everything he went after, he found. How can you be that incredibly lucky? That's my number one question on that. Everything you go after, you find. He supposedly found the wheels of the chariot wheels of Pharaoh's army in the Red Sea. He supposedly found the Ark of the Covenant. There's a whole long list of things he supposedly found in biblical proportions, along with supposedly what you're looking at there. This was his favorite site, though, and I can see why. It looks like an ark, that came down there.
It does. Those do look like planks you would see on the sides of ships.
An interesting thing, Gerald, and Jessica and I talked about this on a show we did one time about the rock giants. Anything that gets incredibly old can actually be petrified into rock. That's we've seen wood can do that. We know that,
right?
There are aspects of. Here's another thing. I don't know if you know this or not, but some bodies, depending on the location, okay, when they deteriorate in the ground, they get a patina around them of like soap. It's kind of like soap or fat that solidifies around that body. They become almost petrified. And mummies are definitely petrified in a way, if you want to look at it that way. They're completely dried out. That's why they survive 6,000 and 8,000 years. So even bodies can do that.
We've had many instances where we found ancient civilizations and bodies of, like in bodies of the peat moss, and we've had the Iceman up in the high mountains that got preserved because of the cold and the ice. We had Russian rulers and other people in the Catholic Church that are putting crypts with glass that they look like they haven't decomposed at all. So, I mean, we've had that through history. So I would imagine other artifacts and stuff would be able to be well preserved too, like you said, depending on the climate and how they were disposed of.
And I guarantee you, Gerald, if I put your body out in the woods on a hot summer day, you ain't gonna last for about 2 weeks out there, okay? That's gonna be about it. Animals will get your bones and scatter them around, Nature has a way of taking care of that unless we intervene. And that's where your mummies come in. So, and by the way, folks, if you have any mummies get up and start walking around and harassing you, call me, okay? If you got a mummy problem, okay? But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, uh, we have to intervene in nature's cycle to stop that stuff happening. And sometimes, though, nature intervenes in the cycle, like with petrified wood and stuff like that. You have to wonder if that's not the case here with what you're looking at. That's fascinating stuff there.
Right.
Well, Ron White supposedly found Noah's wife's grave, supposedly. That's I find kind of interesting as well. But that's very much like, I can't think of his name. He was an amateur archaeologist, and nobody would believe him. But he took, I think, the account of the city of Troy falling, and he went and looked it up and actually found the city of Troy. He was an amateur archaeologist. Now, he didn't go by the precepts of archaeology. He went by history, and he astonished the regular archaeologist. How could you do that? But he did it, and that, so it's not that far-fetched that somebody, goes outside the precepts of archaeology and finds something like that, especially if you go by something like the Bible, a very ancient text, whatever it may be that points you in that direction. Just like the other day, I think they were able to discern one of the scrolls from Pompeii. They were actually able to find out where I think Socrates is buried. They actually found his grave by looking at those scrolls. So you can't discount history, okay? History has a lot of clues to it. Folklore and all this stuff is very important. We must not discount it, but science does. Science doesn't look at that.
It's funny, well, not funny, but it's interesting that a lot of these historical sites that either we read in the Bible or in history books, because sometimes they kind of coincide. They might not have the same names though, because as you know, evidently sometimes continents and countries and cities change their names over time and depend on who is in control of these areas. But they've found the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, or at least they think they have. They've found places like that. They found historical items and names from the Bible on tablets and then on pylons and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, it's coming to light little at a time. But whether it depends on if you're a Christian or not, whether you totally believe on some of the stuff that they're finding. But there is a history background to a lot of it.
Well, it's funny you can mention Sodom and Gomorrah. Ron White found it, okay? And he also found the sulfur brimstone that's supposed to be embedded in it. It's not supposed to be there. That region is not supposed to have natural brimstone, but he found it all over the place. Where did that brimstone come from? Well, according to the Bible, you have an answer. And that's what Ron White was going by, the Bible, not archaeological precepts. And another thing, just a case in point, let me make you a quick case on this. There was taught there are like several journals that exist from the Alamo, okay? And they were going through one of the journals, talked about a whale at the Alamo. Well, nobody knew what this whale was, okay? But using that journal, they finally determined what they found. The whale, dug into it, and found all kind of artifacts that got dumped in the whale, during the Battle of the Alamo. So there you go. You can't discount history, and people leave this record behind for a reason.
Right.
But science, many times, like in science of archaeology, they poo-poo these things. Oh, that's not there. You can't do that. That's just too far out of the box. They don't want to go that way. But they really, in my book, that's stupid. No other way to look at it.
Yep. Another interesting person is Dr. Dino, if anybody's heard of him, Kent Hovind, where he has a a Christian museum, and he talks a lot about the subject we're talking about tonight. You know, talks about the firmament and how they lived during Noah's time, and the Ark of the Covenant and Noah's Ark. He has all these cool videos and displays in the museum, and you can see a lot of his videos on YouTube and online. So if anybody wants to check those out, it's Dr. Dino. He even talks about the dinosaurs, how they may fit in biblical.
That's true. And you know, like I say, an ancient text like the Bible was not a bunch of made up stories, folks. It is a record. That's the way you got to look at it. And that's why these guys were looking at it that way. It's a record. If you take it by the record, 9 times out of 10, it always fulfills itself that way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's a good track record. Okay. Why would you ignore that? You can't get that good of a track record on anything. You need to look at it harder.
Well, the other thing about these records, they don't necessarily write or talk like we did. They have different terms for different things, and they might call different areas something different than we recognize it at. So it's kind of a national treasure kind of thing where you got to decipher the codes and try to figure out what they meant at the time that they wrote it to figure it out. And sometimes we're not very good at that as far as some of these diaries and texts that we find.
Oh yeah, and it's very much like the Rosetta Stone, you know, they found and were able to decipher it using the Rosetta Stone. It opened up a lot of languages for them to understand, to decipher stuff. But unluckily, we don't find that many good keys. But that was a good one
Right.
there.
That's a good story too, to talk about the Rosetta Stone, where that young guy figured out the old Coptic language and deciphered that, which helped decipher all the other ones.
Yep. And it's kind of the domino effect. One thing leads to another, and so on. Like rabbit holes, we go down, Gerald. There's always a last all of them when you get there. But the interesting thing about Ron Wyatt is like this guy supposedly found everything he went to look for, and supposedly even found the Ark of the Covenant on Golgotha, underneath where the supposed crucifixion took place, and that actually, if you look at the Ark of the Covenant, it was a mercy seat. Is what it was basically was. It was a transmitter for talking to God as well, as they say in Indiana Jones. It was different things, but it was a mercy seat. In other words, according to the ancient stories, you had to sprinkle blood on the mercy seat as a sacrifice to God to open up that communication that went on, and or to commune with God in that respect. And that the actual blood that he found on the ark was from Jesus that came down the cross and went on to the mercy seat, and that sort of sealed the deal. And supposedly, when he found it in the cave under Golgotha, there were 2 angels present, and their main mission was to stand guard over the Ark of the Covenant. And they told Ron White that you'll never bring this out. You can never have it out. And they were talking to him personally because he never lived long enough to do that, by the way, afterwards. But they told him, you will never bring this out. It will be revealed when God wants it to be revealed, which is what the message was that the angels told him. And so he died not long after that. So, of course, he never had a chance to bring it out. Right. But they let him take, I think, a photograph of it. And it's kind of a grainy. It's not one of the best photographs in the world, but supposedly it shows part of the Ark of the Covenant. Patricia says, I believe the Ark of the Covenant is in the highest heavens now, not on earth anymore. Just my thought. Well, that's right. Ron White's story. Okay. I mean, as far as I can go with that, but that's what he said. I believe it is hidden, no matter where it's at. It is hidden for a purpose, just like Noah's Ark. There will be a time for it to be revealed to those who will believe. There'll always be people that'll never believe. Okay. That's just the way it goes. You know, Gerald and I have talked about that before. Gerald and me could have our picture took right now tonight with Bigfoot, and nobody would ever believe it. Okay, we will believe it. Me and Gerald will believe it. Because
Right.
we were there. We were the ones that had a picture to him, but nobody else would. But that's okay. That's just the way it goes,
There's so many things that are hidden to us, whether it's God's timing or whoever you think the creator is, or whoever you pray to, that they are keeping this information from us because we don't need to know right now. There's a time and purpose for everything, just like you said, Dennis. There'll be an appointed time where we will know, and we won't necessarily know everything, but we'll know what is supposed to be revealed to us. I mean, just like the candle holder for the altar, the brazen altar, the showbread table. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that we don't know where they are or what they're. Just like the Ark of the Covenant, when the time is appointed, it will become available to us.
According to biblical prophecy, girl, that ark has to be in that rebuilt temple. Okay. And that's why I think it will be revealed in the end because of that reason. But I got like Gerald Gong says Hitler was trying to find the ark. Hitler was trying to find a lot of stuff. Okay. Hitler was deep into the occult, and so were the Nazis. I mean, very, very deep. And I mean, in a bad, bad way.
Right.
I think it was revealed the other day that Hitler had over 1,300 books on the occult in his library. So he wasn't just a dabbler. Definitely not. He was deep into Nazis were deep into Satanism, by the way.
Not even to go into Indiana Jones and all that with the movie with the Nazis collecting all the artifacts, but that was real. I mean, they not only tried to collect the Spear of Destiny and anything else, Jesus' cross or anything that had that, because they thought it had superpowers that could help them control and win over the world, they can control the world. But they took masterpiece paintings, they took literature, they took anything of importance that they thought they could have a wealth of information to use on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on back in those days. But like I say, I just got the feeling that a lot of things are going to happen for that temple to be rebuilt, and that temple must be rebuilt. And when you see that temple rebuilt, that's it. Okay, game over. That's your definite symbol of saying what's going to happen. But that temple has to be rebuilt, and there's got to be certain things in that temple. One of them is the Ark of the Covenant. You got to have a red heifers. You got to have certain things in place, like this shortbread you talked about, some other thing. All of this has got to come together.
Right.
For that. But that temple will be, here's the funny thing about it. They do all of this to consecrate that temple, and one man will walk into it and defile it completely. That's the interesting, but that's got to happen. That's got to happen, without a doubt.
I think it was just this last year that they had some red heifers born, but they weren't without blemish, so they couldn't use it. Everybody was all excited. It was in the news all over it. They actually had red heifers born, but they wouldn't have been sufficient for a sacrifice because they had blemishes, according to the Jewish faith, anyway.
Got to be perfect. As perfect as you can get, in other words. It doesn't have to have any kind of blemish or mutilation to it or anything like that going on. It has to be absolutely perfect. But when you see all these things come together, you'll know that it's like pieces of the puzzle finally showing you the picture when you get it put together. That's what you're going to see. And that's why a lot of people have asked me that over the years. Do you think it's the end of the times yet? Do you think it's the last days? I said, you've got to see certain things happen first, and then you'll know. But you got to be watching for them. You got to know what you're looking at. I was outside the Louvre. They were on strike, so we couldn't go in the Louvre. I was girl and gone was at the Louvre. I was wanting to do what it was in France was to go to the Dali Museum. Oh yeah, and a couple of graveyards and the catacombs. Yeah, France is very interesting place. Paris, especially. I always wanted to go to the cathedral before it burnt down. Actually, but that's
Right.
the way. Anyway, um, I was just checking on a conversation going on in our chat room. Anyway, uh, there's a lot, I think, of artifacts still out there to be found that will be found eventually. But it's fascinating. I love archaeology in the Holy Land, especially. And they supposedly have found the rock that Moses struck. Remember that?
Yep.
The rock
Split in
struck that
two
the
and the
water.
water came out.
Yeah, that's supposed to be nearby there. Mount Tabor, I think, somewhere like that. And they said that they actually tested that rock, and sure enough, there were traces of water sediment there. So there had been water coming through that rock at one time. So it's interesting, very interesting. I always like, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and all this stuff they find. It makes you wonder if this is what's been found. What else is out there to be found?
Right.
That's the interesting part of archaeology.
Well, like I said earlier, you have to be in the mindset of the culture or the civilization that was there at the time. There's a lot of deserts that we know today that were once bodies of water that had flourished with plant life and animals and fish, and there's also, just think about the United States. At one time it was covered with ice, just like Antarctica, but at one time Antarctica was green and plush. I mean, you got to think about at the time of when all this happened. So the landscape changes and covers up a lot of stuff, and we think, oh well, that can't be it, because look at it. Well, we're looking at it in today's eyes. We need to look at it in the eyes of the previous civilization.
That's sure true. The earth is ever changing thing. Things change over time. Terrain goes under different changes, but some of it still remains. Some of it still stays true. Let me give you another quick story about the Alamo. It was very interesting, but there are accounts by the Mexican soldiers that on their way to the Alamo, they ran into a freak snowstorm. Okay. And kind of almost got lost in this freak snowstorm. And so they went back and, according to the accounts on this and diaries and stuff, they went back and geocached where this was. Okay. And started circling along it. And sure enough, off of this trail, they found Mexican Army buttons. So the Mexican Army had been down this trail, that's funny. And all
Right.
these years later now, they were actually able to substantiate that. That's amazing. And yet, this was like almost 200 years after the Alamo, but it was still there. And the buttons were still there. I mean, that's amazing when you think about that. But if you got the clues and you follow them correctly, most of the time there's got to be something there, And an army, of course, leaves a lot in its wake.
Right.
People drop buttons, they drop things, they lose things just as they march, and especially if you run into a snowstorm, you're going to have a problem kind of thing going on. So, sure, you can still find stuff there. It amazes me, though, that all those years later, makes me want to go to Roswell and look around. Yeah. Maybe I find something about somebody missed.
Well, Roswell just had that big flood. So that changed a lot of stuff for the Roswell area.
Yeah. Man, well, there's a lot of, sites like that you could look at and go over again because, like I say, it is okay. Even if you send a whole detachment of soldiers to pick up things and I think somebody's going to miss something. That's just human. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be something there usually left behind if you're very careful and meticulous. But the main thing, girls, you got to be at the exact same spot for sure.
Right.
Start from your epic center, as they call it, and go outwards and looking for these things. You'll have more success with it, But you got to remember, especially in places like the desert and in arid climates or flat lands, things get blowed around too. things get washed away, things get washed up or washed down, whatever whatever situation. So you got to take into account the time, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, even we know these days that, you could have a dry desert, but at night it gets chilly and it creates condensation. And they even have little floods that happen in the desert floors or the valleys of the desert. So it's
That's what
not like
they say.
it's always
Mm.
dry and humid, or you can dig down 5, 6 inches sometime and find wet sand, or, the earth is wet underneath.
What's what they're saying in the chat room about Roswell has just got flooded. So now would be an opportune time when the flood waters recede if something maybe got washed up. Yeah.
That's true.
The reason I say that is when I was a kid, we used to have a plowed field, a cotton field out next to my house. I would walk it every time after rain because I could find arrowheads very easy that way. It would wash up in the rain, you know. I would love to go to Roswell right now after the floodwaters recede, and you might find something nobody else has seen. Right? It's a possibility.
You never know. I mean, even like the beaches or the shores of rivers or lakes, you just never know what those waves might bring in or dig up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are, but it's just like, I think it was in Yellowstone. Somebody found an old 30-30 rifle leaning up against a tree. The stock was gone off of it. That's how old he was. Somebody left that. Unfortunately, something bad must have happened to that person. They didn't come back for their rifle. So
Right.
something bad happened to either a bear got them or something. But think about that, and they said that the gun was still in terrific shape. It's just the stock was gone. They put another stock on and you could shoot it. I mean, and it was like well over 100 years old, sitting there against a tree. Think about that. But then you have other stories of, I think that one guy was walking through Gettysburg and looks up and he finds a bayonet up in a tree. And
Yeah.
the only way they can figure the reason why the bayonet was up in the tree is that there was a sniper that got shot up there and his body decomposed and his body eventually fell out of the tree and they probably buried him or whatever. But the bayonet was left up there in the tree. And you hear stories like that all the time. There stuff still there. History is still with us. We just
Yep.
need to look sometimes a little bit harder for it. I remember the story about Jimmy Dean. Jimmy Dean, the sausage guy, the
Right.
singer, country singer.
Yeah.
He had a cannonball, a Civil War cannonball. He lived not far, very very close to Gettysburg. He had a place there, and he had a cannonball on his mantle, and he would always tell the story about this cannonball. And he talked about a friend of his. It was a guy was in the record business. Came to see him one day and said that when they got through talking, they walked back out. The guy got to get in his car, and the hood of his car was dented. And there lay next to the car a cannonball. Okay. And the only way they figured out this thing fell out of a tree onto his car. Okay. And Jimmy Dean thought it was very funny. Okay. Because this is what he said. They found out, they did the research and found out it was a Southern cannonball. And he said his friend was a Yankee. And he said, so the last shot of the Civil War, was the Southerners against the Yankees. Okay. But that was the story he always told about his cannonball.
Wow.
And that was pretty funny. But the interesting part of this story is all those many years, that thing was up in a tree and just happened to fall out that day on somebody's car. That's the amazing thing. That's a piece of history. And I have been, listen to this. I went to Charleston, South Carolina many years ago, and I was invited ghostwise into this house that supposedly was haunted. And this woman, she lived on what's called Rainbow Road. You probably have heard of that. Rainbow Road is a house, it's got different colored houses. And she invited me into this house. And these houses stood there in the Civil War, okay, facing the harbor. And she pulled back shutters and showed me where cannonballs and bullets had hit this house that are still embedded in the walls of this house. I touched them. I touched one. I moved the cannonball around, but it's still stuck in there from the Civil War. And her husband had sitting in the room. Now this house was like a museum, girl. It was amazing. I wish I could have took pictures. I mean, it was just a very impromptu thing. I wasn't planning it, so I didn't ever plan it out. But I wanted to go back, and I never got a chance to go back. She invited me back. She wanted me to investigate her house because it's supposed to be very haunted. And she said her husband was some kind of lawyer and all that. Said her husband would probably want it more than she did, but they never called me back. But anyway, he had a flag sitting in the corner of this room. And I picked it up and looked at it. This flag flew on one of the ships in the harbor in the Civil War. That's what kind of history people have got in their houses. I mean,
Right.
That's amazing. You never know what people have got.
Yep. Sometimes people don't even know what they have. It's just been passed down. They don't know a lot of history of what artifacts that they do have. I mean, whether it's guns, whether it's swords, whether it's history books, Bibles, have it all written down in. And, a lot of times that information doesn't get passed down. I mean, look at all the bombs we find that get dug up from World War II that are undetonated, and they find all of a sudden buried, whether somebody's doing construction or a farmer's tilling up a field, and there's an old artifact from a world war.
Oh yeah, they're still turning up munitions from Civil War. I saw an article the other day where they found a bomb. It's still still live bomb like from Civil War. They had to call bomb squad in to defuse it and take it out. And they had a picture of it laying down in the hole of the guy. I think they were like doing some gas pipe work or something and came upon this. It was very strange, but yeah, history is still there with us. I have my own self. I have found musket balls. I have found Civil War mini balls. I have one on my desk. I have a mini cannonball on my desk from the Battle of Andersonville, Georgia. It's a paperweight on my desk, by the way. History is still with us, absolutely. I've always loved to go metal hunting. That's a hobby of mine. I don't get to do it much anymore. I have a metal detector. But I used to do, of course, I dig up a lot of car tags, but anyway, never found any treasures yet. I'm still looking for that. But anyway, some people can walk out in the field and bam, they hit a Viking treasure,
Yep.
Some people are very incredibly lucky that way. I have found a few things though, like musket balls and all that. Probably were like for hunting. Somebody was hunting or something. I don't live on the battleground or the field, but anyway, they were probably hunting deer or something or whatever. And of course, I found a lot of arrowheads. I love to find stuff like that because to me, girl, gives you a connection to that person, to that time and place. It's real neat. I like that. Riley Run, Ivy Forest says, my house is built on the ground where two black bears were unalived by the Canadian lumberjacks in the 1830s. Huh? You got animal spirits roaming around there.
Wow.
Watch out. I believe animal
That's right.
spirits can hang around and have two encounters with a horse's spirit. Well, let me say this about that. Anything that I believe has the capacity for love can, I think, have a spirit that remains or can be spiritual. I mean, even a cow can love you. I've seen cows play ball. You ever seen that, Joe?
Yes.
Cows play with a ball. They can be very
Horses
playful.
do.
Animals. It makes me feel bad every time I eat a hamburger.
Yeah.
Yep. Hello, Dragonfly. Anyway, you got anything's got the capacity to me that can really have emotion and love and all that stuff. Definitely would have some type of a spirit to it. And if you got some type of a spirit, you could definitely hang around afterwards,
Absolutely.
Goes without saying. But getting back to the ark, hopefully one day we will find the remains of Noah's Ark. That would be a fantastic find. To think that you could actually show that to the world. Of course, like I say, there'll always be people that won't believe it, but it would be fascinating to see. I think I would believe it. It's kind of like the Shroud of Turin, that we had a show on.
Right.
You either believe or you don't believe, But when it comes to things like that, you got to weigh the evidence. It's like the weighing the evidence on a scale of believability and unbelievability. And if it takes it down to believability, then you got something to look at. That's the way you got to look at it. You got to look at the scales and weigh the evidence. And to find that evidence, though, you first must do what? Follow the clues. Yeah,
Yep.
You got to go to the markers, the clues. That's the way Sherlock Holmes did it. I have my husband's arrowhead collection. I live in Mohawk territory. Oh, okay. That would be fascinating. I've always wanted to find the prehistoric arrowheads, the ones that were made like thousands of years ago, made out of the, what do you call it? The tourmaline kind of looking stuff, The Anunnaki had a version of Noah in the Sumerian text. While the flood happened, they were orbiting Earth. While Noah was in the storm, Enki told them how to make the ark. Let me tell you something about that, Joe Orgon. Look at that very closely. There's the Anunnaki may not be everything that you think they were. There's something else behind that as well. But I won't get into that tonight. That's another story. Anyway, there are certain things back in history that misrepresented themselves to be things that they were not. The Anunnaki was definitely one of them. Okay. I won't get into that tonight. That's stuff for another time. But anyway, getting back to the ark for a moment, I would love to see some film done on it if they ever find it. I would love to see what it truly looks like. Hopefully, it would still slightly remain intact, or it might be like the Titanic. The Titanic is slowly falling apart.
Yes, it is.
A little bit by a little bit. Time will always tell on these things, That includes the ark. So I hope they hurry up and find it if they're going to find it, because time is probably running out on it. What do you think, Drew?
I would think so. I mean, even the most well-preserved things eventually, like you said, whether it's nature or the environment takes over and degrades it, because not everything's in a perfect environment for the material that's there. Whether Noah's Ark was made of a certain wood, they say gopher wood, but we don't know what that species necessarily is. Is it like cedar, or does it have natural inhibitors to nature and rot, or is it just a wood that will disintegrate if it's exposed to the air? I mean, because Mount Ararat does thaw and freeze. I mean, there is times when like the tip of the boat is exposed, so that's can't be very good for it if we're not able to go up and recover it.
Yep, it's true. Raleigh Ron there says, I do hear a sound of a bear rummaging through the trash at night, but never find my trash disturbed. When I go outside, I just hear the sound. Maybe it's, if you live in Erie, Indiana, maybe it's Bigfoot. You never know. It could be going through your trash. Yeah. Ron also says, I believe Egyptian gods are actually aliens from inner Earth. Oh, yeah. What do you think? Maybe they might have been fallen angels, too.
Oh,
that possibility as well. Like I say, that's a show for another time. Anyway, it is a fascinating subject. Noah's Ark. I think we kind of turned the ark over a few times tonight, but hopefully we will find out some more, and I'll be keep an eye on it. That's one thing I've watched over the years, a lot of the different reports on that. I remember I think it might have been In Search Of, which was a great series, by the way. I have the whole series on DVD somewhere, but I got to go back and watch it again one day. But they did a fascinating thing on In Search of them, but it's kind of dated. It's been a long time, so there's been a lot that's happened since then. They need to do a new In Search of. I don't know if they could ever do it without Leonard Nimoy, but um, the interesting thing it is a still ongoing thing all these years later that you still hear about every now and then. People seeing it from planes. People say, giving accounts of when they supposedly walked on it and all this other stuff.
Right.
Fascinating. It's stuff that, well, I always wondered why they did not make an Indiana Jones movie out of that. That would have been a fantastic Indiana Jones movie, wouldn't it?
Yep,
I don't know why they never did
absolutely.
anyway.
You know, the
That was
thing
my
about discovering things today is that we live in a whole different world than when these explorers or these expeditions happened when they first found the ark. And like you said, the father and the child walked on top of it. Well, we have so much red tape and so much war going on in this world that you can't go to some of these countries. You can't get passports or visas. You can't get permission, let alone do the research to find the exact area where it is, because we got hidden information and they won't release information to us. So it's a much tougher world to try to find these ancient civilizations and these artifacts today than it was earlier in the centuries.
Yeah, you would think some of these bureaucrats would want to help out instead of impeding, but they don't know how to do that. I don't think. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, that is our take on that. It is a fascinating topic. Absolutely. Cryptid hunters, I agree with you. It's fascinating as time goes on, it gets more and more fascinating. I think all this stuff is, all of the stuff, and especially biblical archaeology is downright fascinating stuff. And they have actually not long ago uncovered the steps of Capernaum at Capernaum, where I think Jesus supposedly healed that man, the blind man. You can actually go there now. They actually found these places. That's amazing to me that these places are still there, and we're talking about not just 1 or 2 thousands of years old, but even more than that, 4,000 years old. That
Right.
these places are still there to find. That's the most fascinating part of archaeology is that connection with the past that's not lost, Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, do you want to tell everybody what you got planned this week? You got any shows coming up you want to mention again?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we had some great shows these past couple of weeks, including Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress. She's in our chat tonight. She was on our channel, and we got Barb Hartman coming up this weekend, this Sunday at 6 p.m. Central on Sunday night. And we'll be talking about Bigfoot, and we're going to be talking about the interactions with UFOs and possibly a connection between that and aliens and spaceships. So that'll be a really good show.
That sounds like an interesting show. The Ear Girl, I have done a lot of research with abductees, people who claim that they have been abducted by UFOs and stuff like that. I'll have to talk about that sometime or do a show on it. It's fascinating stuff. And, I was just thinking today about that, I remember one interaction I had with an abductee, and they said, "Do you think that my memories are real or implanted?" I said, "Either which way that goes, they are still real to you."
Right.
That's the interesting thing about this. You're dealing with people and their emotions and their trauma and the stuff that they go through with this. I'm gonna have to do a show on it sometime. It's fascinating stuff, and it can be kind of disturbing too when it comes to the way that it affects people and their lives. Um, it has to be addressed, though. It needs to be talked about, absolutely, brought out in the open. But anyway, don't forget too that you got a store, right?
Yes, we do. If you go to Mind Apparels, we have a Midwest Night Watchers store where you can get some t-shirts and some hats and coffee mugs and stainless steel thermoses. And so we got quite a selection there. We're going to be adding to it. So you can go there and check it out. And we have it listed on our my Facebook page or our Facebook page, because Jane runs it too, Midwest Night Watchers. So, and if you would like something, you can also email us at Midwest Night Watchers and we can send the site to you or whatever. And we're also Midwest Night Watchers on Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, you name it. We're getting our podcast out there. And so check us out on these other places, just in case YouTube decides to shut us down on a particular subject. It'll be up on Rumble and Spotify and all the other places.
There you go. Always have a backup plan. Yeah, definitely. Can't stop the signal. Okay, definitely. Anyway, I was going to say this about abduction, though, by the way, folks. There are other types of abduction that I have studied, too. There is Bigfoot abduction or cryptid abduction. There's a fairy abduction. I mean, the list goes on and on about people being abducted. It's not just aliens. There's a lot of other interesting aspects of this as well. So that is the fascinating part of it. There's been a lot down through the centuries, stories of human abductions taking place,
Right.
whether they were by the Fae or by the demons or whatever the situation, supposedly. It is a fascinating, very intriguing subject, no doubt about it. Thank you, Ronald Gong. Yes, I do have a Patreon. There we go. Thank you, ma'am. If you want to join and become an official shadow hunter, listen what's coming up on that for the members. Okay, I am going to be very shortly giving my account of what happened to me the night on the Island of the Dead. You do not want to miss this story. It is a very interesting story. It is one of the most interesting things that ever happened to me. Okay, and I'm going to relate this to you. You're going to love the story. A night on the Island of the Dead. Okay, believe me, it was a freaky night. Okay, absolutely. And I won't be telling that to my Patreon people, and so be looking for that. And also this Wednesday night, the one and only legendary Cryptid Huntress will be my guest. I might keep her on there for about 4 hours that night. What do you think, Gerald?
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good. Do a marathon.
Yeah. We might go 4 hours. Okay, Jessica, watch out. Anyway, she's going to be my guest Wednesday night, Halloween Eve, on Hunting the Shadows. Okay, you do never not want to miss this show. Okay, there you go. It's going to be great. That's going to be a fun show.
You do a marathon and go right into Halloween.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting in the Halloween mood here. Okay, I'm really getting in the Halloween mood. I'm fixing to leave here and go back and watch Salem's Lot again. Okay, but anyway, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week. Okay, go out and do something fun. Go have an adventure. Okay, you need an adventure every now and then just to clear out the cobwebs in your life. Okay, so go out and do something fun. All right, don't do anything unlawful now. Okay, we don't want you to get arrested, but go out and have some fun. Okay, and do something interesting. Go out, go explore something or whatever. And here's the link to Jessica's show, by the way. Thank you, Girl Gone. We'll put that one up there. Check out the Vampire Show. It was great. Okay. Go check it out. It will really put you in the Halloween mood. Absolutely. And Gerald, if they find the Ark, you and I are going to fly there and walk on it. Okay.
I'm ready.
Go check it out firsthand. Okay.
Here, I'll put the link in the chat for our store if anybody's interested. But yeah, I'm ready to go. I'd go with you anytime, anywhere.
And here is your link to your apparel shop. There we go. Putting that up. Thank you, Cryptid Hunters, for all that you do. Thank you so much. And like I say, we're all in this together. We're not competing against each other. We're cooperating with each other, and that's the way it should be. And I was thinking today, and what's interesting is that once upon a time, the cryptid world and the paranormal world had a great divide between them. But now they have brought all of these interesting supernatural things into the cryptid world. Okay. So now it's all together. There's no divide
Yeah.
anymore. Okay. It's not, some people may still see a divide, but it's not really a divide anymore. It's
Right.
all together in the same field there. Absolutely.
Well, we've
And
all been on each other's shows so much, whether it's Jessica, the Cryptid Hunters show. We just had her on a couple weeks ago, and you've been on our show. I'm obviously on your show, and I've been on Jessica's show. So make sure you go over and hang out in their chats. And I mean, we all have interesting subjects and guests that we love to talk to. And Jessica has her Etsy shop, War Woman Goods. She has her Patreon, her membership, the Huntress Club, so make sure you go over there and do that as well as Dennis's Patreon.
Well, I was just about to mention that Jessica's shop, check her out. Hers is War Woman Goods on Etsy. She has some beautiful stuff, by the way. Okay. She's got some real bling bling over there. Okay. Go check it out. War Woman Goods on Etsy. Okay. Absolutely. And I have no place to go. Nobody watches anything I post. It's just, let's see, what's this? Let me see what Joe's got to say here. Anything I post is just, you broke off on that one. I can't read the rest of it. But anyway, you post all you want. Remember what I always say about these programs, and Gerald agrees with me 100%. This is your podcast too, okay? We always want you to have a voice as well, not just us. We want you to have a voice. Don't ever forget that. Absolutely.
Right. Well, we have so many people that show up in our chat, and sometimes it scrolls by really fast. So if we missed anything that you said, Joe, we're sorry, but I guarantee you the people in chat read it, because even when I'm in people's chat, I read all the comments, and it's just a very interesting place where you guys can talk amongst yourselves and share it. Even if we don't have time or see it at the moment, we do read the chats, and so does everybody else.
Well, after the show, I always read every bit of the comments. I always go back to them and read them. Absolutely. There's the War Woman Goods, by the way. Check it out. Thank you, Cryptid Hunters. And if you want to purchase anything from my store or from my shop, I throw in some TH merchandise. Okay. All right. You get some swag on there. All right.
Yeah. Just mention Dennis's name and Jessica will give you some extra stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. But please support Jessica and other shows like hers, and please support Midwest Night Watchers. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to get the truth out there. We're trying to keep you informed and keep you abreast of what's going on in the world around us. Although there's a lot of people out there don't want you to know this stuff, okay? Well, we're not those people. We want you to know. That's what we're all about. And so keep that in mind, okay? And this has been a great show, and we thank you all for being here tonight. And it has been terrific to connect with you, especially on interesting subjects like Noah's Ark and other things like that. Who knows? Stick around. Who knows what we may come up with next week, okay?
That's right. You never know.
There you go. And get your robot grandma pins. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the robot grandma pins. Yeah, I remember that. So definitely keep watching us. We're in your corner, okay? Don't forget that. And until we get back together again, remember, Nos Adventus Quartus. We adventure forth. Hold on to the light and embrace the mystery. Vaya con Dios.
Adios.